Good morning, everyone. I'm obviously not Darcy. So I'm asking for your kindness, compassion, and respect as I have just received this speech this morning, about an hour ago. But it's good. From me to we is what Darcy wrote. How many of you came to Earth Day in Buckley Park yesterday? Let's see a show of hands. All right. It's so important that we gather to celebrate our love for the earth, to tap back into the love and the joy. We get so much messaging about unsustainability. For years, I, Darcy, and me too, was bathed in bad news about climate change, toxic chemicals, plastics, extinctions, etc. I felt I needed to understand what was happening, so I kept getting books from the library about all this scary stuff. And then I'd share what I learned with others, including my husband. He once yelled at me, "Why do you read all these terrible books?" And of course I yelled back because not knowing doesn't make it not true. I got more and more depressed and really angry with humanity. But then I discovered wonderful frameworks for understanding sustainability. Not unsustainability, what was wrong, but sustainability. Principles developed by scientists for real solutions, principles like live off sunshine and waste equals food. They gave me clarity about direction, but I still felt overwhelmed. What could I do within my sphere of influence? I can't stop climate change on my own. So I meditated on what my role was, and you know how sometimes a voice comes out of nowhere? Mine said, you can educate people about sustainability. Slap the forehead moment. Of course I can do that. I've always loved teaching. She must have known she was going to write it for me, huh? Because that was my role too. That's my calling. I've got my life's work down to 2 words: demystify sustainability. Part of the shift that motivates me was realizing that I needed to shift from me, what could I do alone, to we, how could I influence others? As Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson in her book wrote, what if we get it right? I'm suggesting here that you make that shift as well. Now, obviously, you already have a we, your congregation. What if you expanded we, your congregation, into the wider we? Your last sermon was on your web of relationships. Leverage those to make even a bigger difference. As a non-member, the more I learn about what you're doing, the more impressed I get. But I don't think I'm unique in this. Many in our community outside of UUFD might not know about or be learning from what you're doing. It's not about bragging. It's about lighting a path for others. I'm going to give you 4 strategies, what I call the 4 C's, and share some specific ideas. It's fine if my suggestions don't resonate, but hopefully they'll help you to come up with better ideas. What could UUFD do to move from me to we? UUFD already does so much around social and environmental justice. I know some of you are living in net zero homes with solar panels. Some drive electric cars or get around by transit. Some of you promote a plant-based diet. But how can you use your connections to amplify your impact? How do you influence others within UUFD and outside in your wider we? Here are my 4 strategies, the 4 C's: coordinated action, collective giving, case examples, and civic pressure. You notice they all start with C. Let me share a few ideas for each. So number one, coordinated action and mutual support. What if you created a challenge asking everyone to try to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 1 metric ton in a year? If your 150 members averaged that, that would be equivalent to planting 2,500 trees. What if you organized around different approaches to support one another? Let's say some of you want to try explore eating more of a plant-based diet to meet the goal, which is something you could start today. You could share recipes, have potlucks in your homes, or eat out to encourage restaurants to offer more plant-based options. You could publish a little cookbook. You're probably wondering, what would I have to do to reduce my greenhouse gases by that amount? You probably already know actions you could take, but let me put some of those actions into perspective. So for 1 ton, to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions by 1 ton, that's equivalent to a domestic flight. How many of you have or are planning to take a domestic trip by air this year? Let's see some hands. That's pretty good. Could you take 1 less flight in a year? When my parents were alive, we invented a new holiday called Thanksmas. We traveled in between the busy Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, only 1 trip instead of 2. How about 2 tons? But maybe that Viking cruise is calling to you, that trip of a lifetime. An international flight is approximately 2 tons of carbon. Or perhaps you could fly once and stay longer, or pay for a project that could erase the carbon impact of your trip. And we'll talk about that more below. For perspective, the following actions could save roughly 4 tons a year. Put up solar panels, switch to a heat pump, switch one vehicle to an EV. Now, imagine you helped one another achieve this goal and then influenced 5 more people. That's like 200 gas cars off the road. That's the power of me to we. So that's the first strategy, coordinated action. Number 2, collective giving. Darcy helped start 100 for the Earth, a giving circle. At their first meeting, people committed to donate $100, and collectively, we gave $4,000 to a local environmental nonprofit. Efforts are underway at UUFD to create a similar fund for putting solar panels on the home of a lower-income working family through 4Corps' SunShare program. The team is still working on details, but here's what I know. That would be Darcy. You need $7,000 to $8,000 to put solar on one of these homes. Thanks to a generous 50% match, you only need to raise $4,000, and I just found out you're more than halfway there already. If 20 of you were willing to donate around $100 based on your air travel or vehicle emissions, you'd have enough to put solar on the first roof. That's this year. If you're interested, check with Werner to learn more. Okay, number 3, case examples. I remember hearing Ray Anderson, founder of Interface Carpet, say, if we can do it, anyone can. That's the power of demonstration projects. How many of you are working on the fellowship hall, the Building Engagement Task Force, or the Bowman Hall Task Force, or the board? A few of you. What if you tried to make your new fellowship hall a model of sustainability that could inspire others, the wider we? What if you got a Fort Lewis student interested in green building to document the process and the lessons learned hang on just a sec. Not just the outcome, but all the hard stuff and trade-offs to get there. That could become a written case study that could be shared with other UU communities and other faith-based groups. It could be the basis of publicity. I'm sure you'd offer tours during Four Cores Beyond Solar Tour, but what if you hosted a summit for congregations pursuing the Green Sanctuary 2030 project to learn from one another? Okay, we've talked about coordinated action, collective giving, and case examples. The last C is civic pressure. The city of Durango has greenhouse gas emission goals, which the climate study group and our sustainability officer in Durango, Marty Poole, reminded the city councilors of recently. But the upshot of the public hearing on this was basically a shrug. Yeah, we'll miss the 2030 goal. Not, oh my gosh, we're missing the goal, and here's what we can do to catch up. I would love to see your environmental justice group or your whole congregation start a polite but insistent pressure campaign asking how we can make up this shortfall and to meet the 2050 goals. Since the goals didn't come with funding, it makes it easy for them to sideline work toward them. Gail Zander Barlow heads a climate study group, and we're exploring practical actions like citywide composting and a different waste pickup schedule. There's also interest in an airport shuttle. Bring your ideas and talk to your city councilors. So those are my thoughts. I know many of you are really busy, and it's not necessarily about doing more. It's about spreading what you are doing to a much larger audience, amplifying your impact using these 4C strategies: coordinated action, collective giving, case examples or demonstration projects, and civic pressure. We all need to do more to address the climate crisis. We may all have different reasons. Maybe it's your kids or your grandkids or your love of nature or your internal moral compass. As a congregation, you are in a particularly strong position. You have an organized and active group of people, and you bring the moral authority that comes from your broad-based and faith-based principles. I'm hoping you'll spread your successes, insights, and lessons far beyond your own membership. If you do that, you can be an important lever to redesign our community around sustainability, focusing on solutions, not the problems. From unsustainability to sustainability, from me to we. Thank you.